I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to the Marcus Garvey House, a special edition of Conversations with Al McFarlane. I'm pleased to present this as a live streaming show. It will be presented later as a radio broadcast on our station KFAI, and later again for television on SPNN Television in St. Paul, MTN TV in Minneapolis, using multimedia to talk about our interest, our point of view, our passion, and sort of leaving no stone unturned. Obviously, these conversations lead to content in our newspaper, Insight News, and I'm pleased to have as a partner in the interview today my colleague, Tom Gita, who is the publisher of Nshali, an East African newspaper, Pan-African newspaper, and Tom Gita is also the chair of the Minnesota Multicultural Media Consortium. Our guest today is Steve White. Steve White is presently the president of Comcast West Division. In this role, he's a senior executive responsible for all Comcast cable operations in most of the western part of the country: Arizona, California, Colorado, Kansas, Minnesota, New Mexico, Oregon, Washington, Utah, Texas, and Wisconsin, probably more. You've got over 28,000 employees that work for you. And you've got, 9 million customers? Huge. Annual revenue, 17 billion. Big operation. Prior to being division president, you served as the regional senior vice president for Comcast California. And you've got over 30 years of experience in sales, marketing, operations, and general management. Welcome to the Marcus Garvey House.
Thank you, but with 30 years, I'm only 18 years old. I'm not sure how I did.
Well, you look 18.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so you're doing well.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. You're here to support and to address the National Baptist Convention. Let's talk about that first. Why the National Baptist Convention, and what's the message from Comcast to the convention?
Thank you, Al, and thank you, Tom. I'm so honored to be here with you. First, it's a personal and a professional journey. I grew up in the Baptist church in Indianapolis, Indiana, and I still remember fondly my mother in the choir, my aunt at the organ, nice food cooking in the back, and looking forward to after church. So that it was a very personal moment for me because I grew up in the church, and the church has such an impact on my life. But professionally, as a company, I like working with a company that has a mission and a purpose, almost kind of a moral center. And we see Internet Essentials, which is a program that we launched some years ago to help create and get rid of this digital divide in America, and really working through the church community to make sure that vision comes to life and the folks that really need it actually get it. So it was a personal and a professional journey, and I really enjoyed it.
We had the great fortune of interviewing one of your colleagues last week. He was here on the Internet Essentials Tour, David Cohen.
Yes.
A vice president, maybe a counselor at the company, but a great story about Internet Essentials, and along with him, people I call heroes, Olympians who are sort of messengers, evangelists, if you will, talking about the importance, the need for breaking, eliminating the digital divide. How do we do that? And you guys are working that.
Well, it's an important point. So let me just share, Al and Tom, with you a statistic. In a home that's earning $75,000 or more as a household income, access to the internet is over 80%. So think about that. And now if you go to a home similar to one I grew up, where the household income is below $30,000, the internet access and adoption is less than 45%. So that alone should tell us that we have a group of young people that are entering the world, whether it's school, the workforce, at a disadvantage. And that's not fair, especially in this country that is built on the principle that everyone has an opportunity to really be the best they can be. That's not fair, that's not right. And we understand as a company that we play a role in helping close this digital divide. And it is one of the programs that our employees are most proud of. Although we do a lot in the community, whether it's Comcast Cares, if you talk to any of our 150,000 employees in the U.S., they will tell you this is the program they're most proud of.
So let's tell our listeners and viewers how Internet Essentials work. What's the core value, the core proposition?
Well, the core proposition is that there are homes in America that just cannot afford access to the internet. So working with churches, working with schools, working with programs that help folks that are not in a position, We essentially provide internet access at a very reduced price of less than $10. And we work with them to give them access to the internet. And it's not internet where it's like the old dial-up that we used to know. It is true broadband, and it gives them a fighting chance to ensure that they have what's available.
Okay, Tom, jump in.
And you know, my thinking is what motivates Comcast to actually do this, because I mean, this is kind of like their core business is internet and broadcasting, but what is actually motivating Comcast to do
It's
this?
a great question, Tom, and one of the reasons I enjoy working at Comcast, we're a large company, 34th largest company in America, but it was started by Ralph Roberts in 1963, and his son, Brian Roberts, is our chairman and CEO. This is a time where nepotism actually worked out well. Brian earned the job, but he has done a fantastic job. And when you can have a large company that has a moral compass, a center that really drives its behavior, that's a critical point. And so over the years, we kept talking about how could we make a difference? How could we give back? This fits perfectly with our business, and it was a need. And so when you can do something that's good for your business and meet a need in the community, it's a perfect situation.
Well, it really grows customers for the future as well. I mean, there's an investment that's being made, but it's the right kind of investment. It's the right kind of, I think, self-interest that's really public interest at the same time. Is that correct?
But Al and Tom, let me tell you, while that is an important point, we have 30,000 employees here in the western part of the United States. We have 150,000 across the United States. It is not good for us as a large company in America not to have a growing population and future workforce that's not capable. So not only will it help our business, but we hope that we're developing a generation of future leaders that might pick Comcast as their home and where they want to have a career. So it works for everyone. It works for the community, it works for our citizens, and it certainly works for our company.
I think Dave Cohen said he probably signed up around 6 million people in the past 7 years of the program. Is that right?
We have about 1 million households, which represents about 4 million Americans.
Okay.
So think about the impact of that. So 4 million, that's larger than Connecticut, that's larger than Mississippi. So when you start thinking about the impact that you can have, that's a legacy that's worth celebrating.
What's the universe? What's the target? What do you aim to do in a given period of time?
Well, within our community, unfortunately, the need is great. So when we talk about this digital divide of when you look at one household versus another one, it's fairly great. So there's a big need. So every year we're trying to figure out how we can expand the program. We first started with young people that were part of the after lunch program or the lunch program in schools, because that was a clear indication there was a need in the home. But we've now expanded that to include senior citizens that might not have access to the internet. We recently expanded to veterans because, let's be honest, they're coming back, they're making a transition, and sometimes that's a difficult transition. When we can be there to help, we think there's a need, and we're going to continue to hopefully grow this program. So I don't know how big the need is. We know it's great, and sometimes success is not measured in days, months, or years, but we believe we're going to have a substantial impact. And with leaders like you helping us get our voice out there and making our consumers aware of this program, that's huge for us.
I'm Al McFarlane. This is Conversations with Al McFarlane, a live stream from the Marcus Garvey House in North Minneapolis. We're pleased to have Steve White. He's president of Comcast West Division. Joining me in the interview is my colleague, my friend, Tom Gatta. Tom Gatta is the publisher of Nshali Publication Magazine and the chairman of Minnesota Multicultural Media Consortium. We have been focused on broadband access as an organization.
Yes.
We're small businesses. We represent African, Latino, Native, and Asian communities in the Twin Cities area. And we've always known that we have a particular and specific role in educating our community about value of technology, the use of technology to leapfrog from the point of deficit into a future that technology can afford. And so we're glad that you're doing this. I'm glad you're doing it. But what we see this as a way to build on what we've done in the past, working with broadband adoption and awareness. What's the end game here? What do you say broadband savvy can and should mean for people that are presently less than fully connected, underserved, underrepresented? What can happen?
It represents opportunity. First of all, the key to any successful endeavor, whether your life or business, is information. And when you can expand your horizon, you can expand how you think about the world, you can expand your thoughts around how you build your business. That's what broadband does. It essentially opens up a whole new world for you without you even leaving your home. And not having access to that actually creates a disadvantage. And so the end game ultimately is that everyone's on a level playing field. And it might not happen in my lifetime, Al and Tom, but I know that if we can get to a point, this country could be even greater when everyone has an equal opportunity. That is the end game, and that's what we're trying to do. And we believe truly, as a company of our size, we have a role there. There's a way private and public partnerships can come together and create a unique environment. That's the end game, level playing field for everyone. And like I said, it might not happen in our lifetime, but guess what? While we're here, we're going to make a difference and we're going to make an impact.
What kinds of responses are you getting from the institutions you're reaching out to? You're working with veterans, you're working with the church,
Yes.
Education.
Yes.
What's been their response?
Unbelievable, because they see there's a need, and they can see when they're interacting with a young person, they can see that they're at a disadvantage. And so when they see there's an opportunity there to help, take smart young people or senior citizens who are anxious to become part of this broadband world, or helping veterans transition back from after serving our country, the response is overwhelming. We believe we can do more, and they want us to do more, and that's why we're out doing our Internet Essentials tour, is making folks aware. That's our biggest challenge now, is ensuring folks are aware of the program.
And first of all, thanks for doing this. I'm a big advocate of Internet Essentials. We started working last year with Stacy and Company here locally, the reception, as you say, has been wonderful, and we continue to advocate for adoption of Internet Essentials. But going back to your National Baptist Convention visit here, I'm an immigrant from Kenya.
Yes.
And I've been here 28 years, and the people who welcomed me here was the Black Church. So that's what kept me grounded. It introduced me to the American system, and so I've stayed close to the church, and I believe they're a critical component in this adoption. Yes. So one of the some of the groups that we've been engaging are obviously churches and the non-profits, and I think I want you to elaborate a little bit more on how you think the churches and the other non-profits can really help with Internet Essentials.
Well, we're a country of institutions, and so whether it's the U.S. government or whatever, we're a country of institutions. And in the Black community, and in the Hispanic community, and in the community for people of color, the church is a central point. It is a gathering place. It is a place to see your family. It's a place to see your friends. It's a place to express your faith. And so when you can take that and create an environment where there's a trusting environment, and then create a space where people can expand and grow and do it in a way that's non-threatening, they play a major role. And so we recognize that, and we know that getting broadband involved with the churches is a great way to really extend this out through the community. So when you can do that in an environment people trust and believe in, and they know it's there for their benefit, it breaks down any barriers. And so that's why, whether schools or churches, we believe it's a great venue for us to create that kind of environment of trust, that this is here to help you be the best you can be. That's a great partnership.
Steve, I have to tell you how impressed I am with you personally, your story, your bio. And I want to take a minute to go into who Steve White is. You mentioned you're from Indiana.
Yes.
So talk about that. And I often ask my guests to sort of reveal as much as they care to about their genealogy. It means something to me that all of us is operating sort of as an extension of all those who came before us, right? And so how present in your mind is the image, the memory, the retention of your predecessors in doing what you do?
Well, unfortunately, my story is similar, Al and Tom, and it's unfortunate. Single mother, raised 4 boys by herself in what I call the housing projects of Indianapolis. They're probably not as tough as the ones in Chicago, but I thought they were pretty tough. And a mother with an 8th grade education, but had enough vision to say, I want my kids to have a better life. And so what I learned at that kitchen table when we were trying to decide which bill to pay this month and which one to float to next week, you learn a set of values of hard work, family, commitment, owning up to your responsibilities. And there were so many moments. At the time, I didn't realize my mother literally would cry herself to sleep because she was not sure how she was going to make it the next day or how she was going to pay this bill. But to see that level of dedication and commitment, it really inspires me. And oftentimes people say, well, tell me who your greatest mentors are. It's my wife and my mother, and I always mention my wife first because she always wants me to mention her first.
And you're a smart guy.
And I'm a smart guy, and that's why I've been married a long time. But when you learn those values, it teaches you that nothing is impossible. And when you can focus on the 2 things you can control, which is effort and attitude. And when you talk about memory, this chip on my shoulder is still there, but I decided to make a good chip. And so that inspires me every day to be the best that I can be and bring it every day. My younger brother says, bring your game every day. And that's what I try to do. And I still remember those memories of sitting there at the kitchen table and my mother telling me that anything is possible. And self-esteem is a huge part of success. And when you have someone reinforce that on a regular basis, it just inspires you to do great things. And you don't want to let her down. Because when someone has made great sacrifice, it is your responsibility to honor them. And that's why I'm so proud of our company, because we honor and respect the folks that have made great sacrifices to help our country be so great.
How about your grands? How much do you know about your lineage?
Well, a little bit. My mother's from Georgia, and so one of our family members wrote a book called The Double Jordan. That's my mother's maiden name, and so I know a fair amount about them. And even early on, my grandfather, my mother's father, was one of the few African-American men in rural Georgia that actually owned land. He owned 400 acres that is still in the family. And so way back, there was this ability to connect and be an entrepreneur and work hard and make it happen. So I know that's why I'm here, because of that lineage.
Tom, when you think about Alan McFarlane and Steve White, African Americans, talking about lineage, and you bring your sense of lineage from Kenya, how's the conversation sound to you, and what do you add to it?
No, actually, as I said, I've been here now 28 years. I came as a college student, got ingrained in the system, and it's been interesting to see the interest that African Americans now have in tracing, finding out their lineages and the Ancestry.com stuff and all that stuff that people are doing now. So it's been very exciting to me. Now you meet somebody says, oh yeah, I did my DNA, and it says I'm Yoruba, or I'm from Nigeria or whatever. So it's been quite revealing, and my part, what I've been doing actually is trying to just encourage as many. I think one of the things that can help bridge that quest for tracing a lineage is actually visiting the continent. I think that most people that I know that have the opportunity to visit the continent, it does something to them. I think it does something to them, and so there's an uptick in a lot of the African American tourism now into the continent. Mostly used to be Caribbean, but now there's an uptick, especially with South Africa nowadays. Everybody wants to go to South Africa, and Ghana, of course, has been traditionally the destination for a lot of African Americans. So we, personally, I try to encourage as many as possible to continue doing their DNA to find out, to trace the ancestry. I think it does something to you as a person. Connects you, I think, to the continent and the people. There is something it does to your psyche generally. Most people, anybody I've met who has done their DNA, their psyche is very, very different than one who has not. But lately, what I've been encouraging folks to do too is to encourage their children, college, when they do the study abroad program, to take as many, to try and do one in Africa if they can. Because I think right now we're talking about the digital divide and also the achievement gap, especially for our state. The one that I foresee coming up, which is actually one of the reasons I'm a big proponent of Internet Essentials, to bridge that gap is we're running into a situation where you'll find the African Americans falling behind in terms of exposure to visiting Africa and study abroad achievements. So you find these from the majority culture, there are a lot of students who take up opportunities to study abroad, which includes Africa. So we don't want a situation where you find the person from the majority population are the ones who know the local African languages. And the African Americans don't. Because I've actually run into that situation. Right now there are a couple of people I collaborate with that are very fluent in Swahili, and they are not African Americans. Okay, so it's kind of an interesting situation. So we need to encourage our students to do that.
What I love about what Tom said is it grounds you.
Yeah.
It gives you a foundation, and that really inspires me. That's awesome.
So the technology is important to me. You probably read Fredrickson's books on The World is Flat.
Yeah.
And the premise was that people can do now collaborations that only states could do in the past, or only governments can do, that only corporations could do. But now you and I can do global interaction because of technology. So I am a believer that as we engage and grasp and utilize the technology, we simply need to be reminded and encouraged to be intentional, thinking beyond those limits that we impose on ourselves about who we are and where we are and what our place is in the grandest scheme of things, that we've got a potential to enjoy a global footprint that we're a part of, that we represent, and we can flex to our advantage and to the advantage of humanity. So the challenge for Black people, Steve White, is what, from your point of view, how do we take this technology and sort of incorporate into it whatever is essential in our cultural DNA that can benefit humanity? What do you think?
Well, embrace. And so technology and social media is getting a bad rap now. And believe me, there's anything can be abused. But embrace, and get exposure and challenge yourself to learn more. So I believe is fundamentally is part of our livelihood and our ability to really grow and expand is we have to adopt technology. Would you agree, Tom?
Of course, yeah, definitely. I mean, of course we have a business relationship with Comcast right now. And I'll give you an example. Last week I was at the Franklin Library, the library here in Minneapolis, and there were some children there that they were doing their homework because school started early for them. So they were doing their homework. So I just started talking to two African American teenagers. And I say, hey, so what's going on? School is up? Yeah, just trying to do our homework and stuff like that. And they were there mostly for the homework help. So I was trying to figure out if they were there for nowadays. Since I knew about Internet Essentials, I normally quiz some of the kids whether they actually have internet at home. And these two said no, they don't. So I wrote down the the web address. Said, hey, go tell your mom to look this up. It's just I'm a personal advocate of the of Internet Essentials, paid or not paid.
I love it. But Tom and Al, here's another way it helps. I have a young 5.5-year-old son who believes he's 18, but we'll work through that at another time. But one of the things my wife and I do is we ensure that he loves to go on the internet, he loves to find games on YouTube and others. But we challenge him, and we've come up with a list of African Americans that have made a tremendous impact on our history. And we make sure that he reads up on those folks, whether it's Marcus Garvey is in reference to your home here. But we want him to learn and understand. We want him to understand that Barack Obama was the first black president and why that was such a significant moment for people in 2008 when the number of African Americans that voted was at an all-time high. Why was that so significant? Why was that so important? So think about when you can embrace technology, and maybe you can't get to Africa, maybe you can't get to Washington, D.C., to the African American Museum, but you can learn and understand your roots and why your being here is so significant. So that's another way that I believe embracing technology can really be huge in our community.
Steve, you talked earlier about employment and the jobs you provide. I have to tell you that I was so impressed when I visited your headquarters in St. Paul, Ron Orlando.
Yes.
My colleague, and I call him a brother from another mother. A friend of mine invited me over and started our relationship with Comcast locally. But what was clear, without his mentioning it, was the number of people of color in every level of operation in that facility. And so this is walking the walk from my point of view. Talk about that experience and how that company has developed, as you called it, a moral compass that says this is how we do it.
Well, think about it. We're a public company. We have shareholders. Our job is to make money. That's and return an investment to our shareholders. Why would any company cut itself off from a level of talent that is sitting there waiting to be nurtured? That is so foreign to me. And so the more we can do that and more we can embrace that, it allows us to have a competitive advantage in the marketplace. Because when you have a company that sits around the table and fights over ideas and not turf, that's what we're about. We're fighting over ideas and not turf. And when you can get a level of diversity in the room, sitting at the table, and then you just focus on the best idea, that's how companies win. That's why Comcast in 1963 started with 1,200 employees in Tupelo, Mississippi. Today is an $85 billion company, 34th largest company in America in a very short period of time. You don't do that by yourself. You do that by creating an environment, attracting great people, and allowing the best ideas to rise to the top is significant. But I also understand my role as an African American leader. I am a role model, and it is my responsibility to ensure that my leaders, whether they're black, white, male, female, it doesn't matter, that they understand this is not an option. We will be the most diverse company in America. It might not be there today, but we will be. If that's not a program you can really support and embrace, then maybe another company might be interested in your services. So, and when that gets embraced at the top, all the way down to the bottom, magical things happen. We're nowhere close to perfect. We got a lot of work to do, but we have a North Star that we're focused on, and that's very, very important to us.
I want to thank you so much, Steve White, for visiting us here in North Minneapolis. Thank you for your service to the company, to the market, I say to the country, and thank you for what Comcast is doing in bringing internet essentials to people everywhere, making sure that we seriously address the question of a digital divide, to find a pathway to inclusion and embrace. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Al, for your service. Tom, thank you. Getting that voice out there is so critical. We're just so honored that we can support your mission because it's important and it's not broad enough, so we want to do whatever we can do to help you continue your mission.
Any questions for us?
No, keep up the good work and always think Comcast.
All right.
Thank you. Good to see you.
I'm Al McFarlane. This is Conversations with Al McFarlane. We'll see you again. Thank you so much for participating. Questions about it, check us out at Insight News, www.insightnews.com. And stay tuned for more Conversations with Al McFarlane. I think that was good.
Guys,
It's-